All right, so we're gonna go. I know I've been going through a lot. There's a lot of stuff in this case. There's a lot of testimony that I have in my full report. There's just a lot of things going on, and a lot of this, again, a lot of these things that I'm coming are my opinion on some of this stuff. That this being all linked together, it makes sense to me. So I guess people can look at the video and they can make up and determine what they believe is going on here. I know from me being there and being involved in this and things that I've been doing, I feel strongly about that. These are all connected, especially when you have SIU and all these people involved in this job. They shouldn't investigate this job. All right, so I'm gonna go a little more in depth to Jessica Carmona. Now, they made Jessica Carmona out to be a hero on this job. So you have to have somebody. I'm going to go into some of these storylines. When you go in and you start changing the motive, and then you start changing, as far as my opinion, you start changing the storyline, you start coming up with different stories here, because you have to come up with something. You can't go with what's really going on, even though they continue to keep saying it's a drug test, when they clearly didn't testify to that, and that wasn't the motive used in the 2008 trial. But in my opinion, they had to come up with somebody here that was likable. So what they do is they come up with Jessica Carmona as being likable. So, she's grabbing her child, she's on the ground, she's rolling, covering the kid, all this stuff. This is an execution. This is what they said it was an execution too. This is clearly an execution. She's got a scratch on her leg. We know about that. The doctors testified to that. This little minor, little superficial scratch. That's what the doctor said. I know that's what it was, but he even testifies to it. So you have her who's become this hero. You have to have somebody who's likable. Alex is not likable. So clearly he's got prior convictions. He's lying. He's changing his story on the stand. She's changing her story on the stand, left and right. But you have to have somebody. You have to have the jury feel for her. So she is the individual now that I'm going to start to highlight and spotlight. So this is her. Initially, she doesn't call 911. She is the second caller. She's when I'm pulling up and I'm in this area here, Jacksonville. When I ask for more information, there's a second caller on. That's her calling. That's her calling about the second person being shot. So the first person to call is Mr. Saltzman, who's the neighbor who lives right across the hall. She doesn't call. She goes in. She goes into the apartment. Well, what she does is, when this all goes down, she leaves and she takes her child, one or two kids. We're not sure. Sanchez states when he testifies at the trial that he didn't see any kids. This is around midnight, and they had testified that these kids were running around, playing and all this stuff. And Sanchez says, I came in, I didn't see any kids at all. So there could have been kids in the room or in the bedrooms, but he says, I didn't see any kids. So I'm not buying the whole story about these kids playing and running around on almost midnight. One's a baby and the other one's 2 years old or 3 years old, something, a young child. So she ends up taking these kids, from what she says, down the hallway to somebody else's residence and drops them off. Well, as I said, when I got here at 23:57, she's in the doorway, right? So this is less than 3 minutes from when the call goes out to when I get on scene. She's the second caller here, right? So I pull up, I come in. I see her first. She's standing here. She has no sense of urgency. Immediately, there's all kinds of things going on for me, because I've been on a lot of these jobs, a lot of shootings. So she has no sense of urgency at all. She's not trying to flee this location. She testifies that when this shooting went down, she fled for her life. She fled for her life and the lives of her children. So she runs out. Well, what'd she do? She goes down here and then she immediately turns around within seconds and comes back. She comes back because she goes back up inside this apartment and she goes up in this closet to go look for this gun, right? I'll get to why she does that. But she has no sense of urgency. She's here on scene. She doesn't know the shooters aren't going to come back. All the jobs that I've been on in the city, and I've been on a lot of shootings, any cop who works in the city, works in the ghetto, works in the hood, they know you got to go track these people down. You got anybody who gets out of a shooting or they go to the hospital or they flee the location. You got to go track those people down. They don't just come back and show up and just go, oh yeah, I was involved, or they come back before the police were there. That's a no-no. It never happens. This is common sense here. They're not coming back. If she feared for her life, she would stay in that apartment. She would tell, 911 where she is. No, she don't do any of that. She comes back immediately, goes up into an apartment where there's no escape route. She has to go through the same door she exits from. So she's going to trap herself in the back bedroom? I don't think it's going to happen. No, it doesn't make any sense. Why? Because she's in on the job. She's not a target. She's not a target of this job. So this is what she says. this is what she says when she finally calls 911. When asked, this is a question. When you called 911 initially, you said something about Steve Miranda doing this, correct? And she answers yes. That's her testimony at the first preliminary hearing. She testifies. One of the defense attorneys asked her, and she testifies. She testifies to what she just said, that she said something about Steve Miranda doing this. There you go. So she says that to 911, and she testifies to it at the first preliminary hearing. She told me that on scene, right? So then you got that. So now you get down here to the setup, and here's the setup. Now, this is entirely, this whole job is one big setup. Remember, you've got all this stuff going on back here from the first video, where you got all this stuff going on, parking the car, coming up. These guys are going in here to kill this girl. And I guess they're figuring, well, I get her, I'll get him too. So this is part of the setup here when it comes to this one. All right, Jessica. All right, so here's the Commonwealth asking Jessica about the murders and the setup. Question. You also told 911 operator this was a setup. That's the words you use, set up, yes. All right, so we got that part down. Then she says, what made you say that? Answer. What made me say that was because Alfonso didn't know where I lived and Stephen did. So that's her answer. She's trying to cover for why she said what she said about it being a setup. She said that this job was a setup. She stated to 911 initially and confirmed it in court that she said Steve did it, right? So she also says it's a setup. So we're going back to the whole thing about what I'm saying here. This job is a setup, the whole thing. She says it. In 911, she talks about setup. So here's some more of her testimony about the setup. All right, so question. This is about the babysitting. And you wanted to go to the neighbors, and so you called Lisa, right? To watch the kids, right? Answer. Actually, she called me. Question. She called you? Answer. Yes. So she's already deflecting. She's already saying, oh no, I didn't call her, she called me. Question. Why did she call you? Do you know? Answer. Because she was my sister and wanted to come over. That's her answer. Question. She came over and you said we need you to watch the kids, right? Answer, yeah. Question. She comes over about 10:30? Answer, about 10:15. All right? So that's what she's saying. Now, this is a little bit more going into the setup here, so you can get the gist of what's going on here. She's now, in my opinion, now she's saying, oh no, the sister wants to come over. So now she's kind of stepping back away from the whole setup. Her calling a sister, you know, so she wants to get away from that whole thing, about that whole narrative. She wants to step back from it. So this is a question. Where did Lisa live? Jessica's answer. She stayed with friends. She really didn't have a specific home. It fits the narrative. She's got to get her in the apartment because the girl doesn't have she doesn't have a fixed abode. She's living from friend to friend. She's staying with friends. She don't know where she lives. She's just living all over. So yeah, you got to bring her to the location, make sure she's there. So question. Now at some point you said she was babysitting. Did you and Mendez decide to leave the apartment at some point that evening? Jessica's answer, yes. Where did you go? Jessica's answer, we went across the hall. So she goes across the hall. Remember, she goes somewhere down across the hall here. She takes a couple steps, goes across literally a few steps across the hall. Question, what did you do in the apartment across the hall? Her answer, Jessica's answer, we were over there drinking. Mendez Thomas has no alcohol in his system, so that she ain't telling the truth. He's got drugs in his system, but he sure don't know no alcohol. That's in his toxicology report that I had in the first report. All right. So, question. So you go over there now. When you get over there, is it directly across the hall? Her answer, not directly across the hall, like on an angle. So, like it ain't right across the hall. It's like over here. Or it's over here. Like, really? Come on. Like, so it's across the hall. So, have you ever been there before? Jessica's answer, yes. Who lives there? Her answer, he did. Just he did. Who is he? Jessica's answer, I don't know his name. Question, well, you've been to his apartment before, have you not? Answer, he goes by the nickname Cash. That's all I know. Question, why didn't Cash come over to you guys? Good question, right? Answer, because that's what we wanted to do. He wanted to do. So he invited me to go, and I said yes. Question, well, if you have children you needed a babysitter for, why didn't you just have Cash come over and drink at your apartment? Jessica's answer, because Mendez invited me to go, and it's at his friend's house. So she's making this story up, and Mr. McMahon, again, when you read all the testimony, the trial testimony, Mr. McMahon shreds these two people. Like, you're talking about a guy who had problems with the case, yes. There were some issues with the case, but he didn't get the DNA. He says he didn't get my report. And then one thing that this man was good at was questioning these people. I mean, he's got, 40 years of experience? I don't know. He's been an attorney and a prosecutor forever. So, yeah, he's up in age, of course, but he knows what he sees. He actually says in the very beginning, when in the questioning of Jessica and Alex, he actually states that he tells both of them, well, he lifted his shirt and pulled the gun. He never saw my report. He didn't know nothing about lifting the shirt and pulling a gun like it says in my report. He never saw it. But he actually says that to them. And they say, oh, no, that didn't happen. He didn't pull a gun. Well, yeah, he did, because you can put this all together, because Mr. McMahon's been doing this for umpteen years. So he knows what's going on. So his questioning here, this is him questioning her. He's eating up her whole story about going across the hall. Cash doesn't have any kids or something like that, so he lives by himself across the hall. So Cash could easily come across the hall and come over here and drink. No. So it goes back to what I was saying. She had to get him out of the apartment in order for these three guys to get there, and then for Alex and Steve to secrete themselves into this apartment before he comes back. Because why? They want to get the jump on him, that's why. Because Jessica's job is to get him across the hall or get him somewhere outside the apartment. And then when they get the call at 11:51, bring him back. He brings him back, he comes back in here, and then of course, they have the jump on him. They're in the prime locations. He's got to come to them. He comes in the apartment, they're in the apartment, they already know he's unarmed, they already know he's high, they know that she's there, they know the gun is in the apartment, per se, but this is where it really gets interesting, because I believe that, this is my opinion on this stuff, about what's going on here. My opinion is that Jessica has another role. Her role was to hide the gun. Her role was to make sure that not only is he unarmed when he leaves the apartment and he comes back high and he walks into this trap, because they set a trap for him, that the gun is hidden. So when he runs back here to get this gun has been moved. And she states that this gun's moved and it's up in a closet. Well, I'm going to go into what she says. He runs back here, and like I said in the first video, he's trying to find a gun, he can't find it. You've got a lot of suburban cops out here. This is a suburban department. Well, you know what? I work in the city, and anybody who works in the ghetto, in the hood, out there in the city, working a beat, working a jobs, there ain't no way that a drug dealer, he's a drug dealer, right? He's living in his house, he's selling drugs out of his house at times. This kid has got a gun for his protection and his safety. There's nobody that I've ever been involved in, all the homicide warrants I've served, and all the drug warrants I've served, and all the jobs I've been on, where you're going to have an individual put a gun someplace where it's not readily available. He is not going to put a gun up in a closet, like I said before, up and under a bunch of clothes where he can't find it. That's just ridiculous. That's not going to happen. In the middle of the night, he's going to get to that gun. It's going to be readily available. So for us to believe that this gun is up in that closet where she put it, and he knows it's up in that closet, that's BS. That gun was moved from wherever it was, put up in that closet, leaving him totally unarmed and totally vulnerable to what's going to happen to these folks. And that statement is from me. That's my opinion. This kid was put in a situation where he's going to die. He has nothing. He has no gun. He's trapped in this back bedroom. He peeks out and he's shot and he's killed. But you know what? I mean, the treachery of this whole thing, for you to set these people up, this is their MO, Steve and Alex. I mean, this has been talked about. I mean, he told his ex-girlfriend. She says on 911, Jessica, that's a setup. I mean, it's mentioned over and over again. These two people are walking right into a trap, and they have no idea what's going to happen. And then this poor kid runs back here to get his gun to protect his life, and that gun is moved to a location where he can't get to it. So I'm going to go into where this gun is located. All right. Here's the testimony about the weapon and where it's located. Question. And when you went into your bedroom and you reached up there on the shelf, is it correct that you actually felt around for it? Jessica's answer, yes. Question. So it wasn't that you could not reach the shelf. You reached up there and you felt, but you could not find it. Jessica's answer, I couldn't find it. Why I say that is because she had testified also that she had placed this gun up in this closet, right? And that she testifies to the prosecutor that she just couldn't find it. She was too small. They went into this whole thing about how tall are you, and she gives this whole description about she's 5 feet and she can't reach, and then it's dark and she knows it's in the closet but she can't find it. Blah blah blah. So it's all bull. She could reach. She couldn't find the gun. She's the one who put it in there, and she couldn't find it. And you know why she ran back here to find the gun? It's because she says, and I'm going to have it, the testimony. I'm trying to find it here. She actually testifies that she believes that they used her gun. They used her gun. That she says that Alfonso used her gun, stole my .45 and used my gun. Now, I'm going to go into what the testimony is right now, but her story is that she states that Alfonso, when he pulls this gun out from his waistband, he fires from this area. Alex says the same thing. Well, she tells the 911 operator that, on her second call, she calls and tells them that they stole her gun. They used her gun. That's what she says. And this is part of the testimony here with this. She's telling them that they got her gun. Well, you have to understand that Alfonso Sanchez doesn't know Mendez Thomas. He's never been to this apartment, right? He doesn't know Mendez Thomas, and he hasn't seen Jessica in 8 years, and this is testified to. She confirms it. And when Alfonso comes into the apartment initially, and Jessica comes back into the apartment, right? He actually asked Jessica, do you know who I am? And Jessica confirms that in her testimony. Mr. McMahon asked her, is that what was said? And she says, yeah, that's what he said to me. So he actually asked her, do you know who I am? This goes back to the whole thing about this phone thing with this original narrative where she says that Alfonso gets on the Nextel and starts talking, acting like he's Steve. Well, how the hell does she know he's Steve when she hasn't seen him in 8 years? Like immediately that pops in, and then she gives this whole excuse about, well, his voice. I know his voice when I hear it. So she testifies, and it's comical to me because she says, that it's ghetto. Like when he talks, it's ghetto. And they're like, what? It's ghetto? And she's like, well, yeah, when he talks like ghetto. So I knew that it was Alfonso right away. She hadn't seen this kid in 8 years. It's all BS. She hasn't seen him. Alex Martinez testifies it never happened. He says it never happened. This call and Alfonso getting on the phone never happened. Alex says, no, nobody ever got on the phone. It was Steve that was on the phone the whole time. So why is that even in this? I don't know. I have no idea what this is all about. I believe it's just to dirty him up, like just Jack McMahon said, to dirty their client up. I mean, a lot of this is just to dirty him up, like just to make him worse than he really is or whatever. I don't know. It's odd, the whole, what's going on with this whole thing. But here's the testimony about the gun. She actually tells the 911 that they used my gun to shoot these people, right? So that's why she runs down here and then she quickly comes back to go look for her gun because, hey, you know what? Now, not only is she implicated in the job, but she thinks she's pretty good. But now, hey, Steve now used her gun to shoot these people, so now he's implicated her even more. So now she's got to run back immediately and go up to find a gun to make sure, hey, did they really use my gun? So that's why when she finally calls 911, she thinks that she can't find it, she thinks they used it. Well, how the hell did Alfonso know where the gun was? How did Alfonso know that Mendez even had a gun? And he only walked into the apartment. He was only in there for a couple minutes. So the bottom line is, he knows that there's a gun. He goes looking for it? Like, you gotta be kidding me. And then he knows where the gun's at and he finds it? Like, no, Steve had the gun the whole time. She actually thinks that Steve's using her gun. And it's just gonna implicate her even further. That's what she thinks. So, and that's my opinion. So, here you go. This is the exchange between the Commonwealth and Jessica. Question. In response to the 911 operator, as to what kind of gun the shooter had, you said, I don't know. He stole my gun, a .45. He stole my gun, right? And I know he took it because you went back there and you looked for it and it was gone. Or you couldn't get up to it. That's what gave you the impression that he took your gun, right? Answer, Jessica, yes. We've heard on the 911 call that you mentioned something about your gun being taken. Answer, yes. Question, why did you say that at that time? Answer, because when I went to look for it, I couldn't find it. Question, at what point was it that you went to look for it? Answer, as I was on the phone with 911. Question, where did you think it was? Answer, I knew where it was, I just couldn't reach it. Well, we already talked about how she could reach it. So that was all BS. So she's trying to explain away why her gun is up in this closet and why she can't find it, and then why she says to the 911 operator that they used my gun, they stole my gun. So, again, this is my opinion on the gun. This is my opinion. When I found out about this whole stuff with this whole gun, immediately with the setup and all this is my opinion. I believe it's a ruse robbery setup. She's part of it. I believe that she was told to move that weapon and hide that gun. That's why that gun is up in that closet. Because you got to remember, and again, Alfonso goes back there to look for that gun and he doesn't find it. Well, you know what? Who the hell is going to put a gun up in a closet, in a dark closet up under a bunch of clothes, when she's the one who put it there and can't find it? He can't, he sure as hell ain't going to be able to find it up in that closet up under all the clothes. So that gun was not up in it. That's my opinion. That gun was somewhere it was readily available. Now, so that's my opinion on what I believe would happen with this weapon. That's why she's doing and saying the things she's doing as far as with the gun and all this stuff, and then, oh yeah, I got Sanchez taking a shot back here, and Alex, I got it back here, because she needs to see the gun come out. She needs to see him, she can't see him down here, so she's got to say he shot up here, which we know is not true. You know, like I said, I mean, it's gotten ridiculous. But I like how Mr. McMahon just totally ate her up over here with this whole thing. I mean, if Cash is a single guy, he could just come over here and have a drink with you, you know. And then Alfonso's done. Mendez Thomas don't even have alcohol in his system, so he ain't drinking over there. No. She needed to get him out of here. These guys come in. Now all of a sudden he comes back and he walks right into a trap. So the trap's sprung. These guys are right on top of it. And then again, you go back to the timeline, like I said, within a 2.5 minute period, you know, and EQB even less than that. I mean, if they get the call at 11:51, 23:51, they could come back. It's possible it could have been 11:52, but whatever. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. So 2.5 to 3 minutes. These people are dead within that short amount of time. You know, and her initial story with this whole thing, you know, I mean, when did they have time with all their stories about all this crap going on, with them stepping back and they're getting in between each other? I mean, they had to start to make some kind of a story, you know, I believe. But that's where I come in with the officers. And the officers had to be, I mean, this is my opinion, they had to be telling these people what to say. Because there's no reason. I mean, they meet up with him down at Upper Southampton Police Department. And again, you know, this is pivotal. This comes out years later. The DNA comes out 8 years or so later. And then, you know, finally they vacate and reverse the charges. But then, you know, I find out from the Federal Public Defender's Office that they tell me that, oh no, he's got scratches on his face. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, scratches on his face. I'm like, he has scratches. Yeah, she said, oh yeah, he's got scratches over his eyes, he's got scratches on his face and on his head, and we saw a picture of it. And then they come to find out that, oh no, there's 2 photos. Oh no, we got 2 pictures now. We got 2 pictures of injuries to his face. So, you know, again, it all starts to make sense that why he didn't come back. You're not going to bring him back to our station, and then you bring him back to our station, and all of a sudden he's at our station, and all of a sudden I see him, or any of these other officers see him and go, what the hell happened to him? You know? And then all of a sudden you got the no. He don't want nobody coming back. He don't want none of those guys coming back. He wants to keep them separate from us so that they can go through with their story, so that they can start to get their narrative together here, which is totally different from what really happened. So, I mean, this is what we're going into here with this whole thing with Jessica, and you know, and her being a hero and all this stuff, and you know, and all this nonsense, and you know, so it gets ridiculous. But you know, this is her testimony on this whole DNA issue. This is where she says, oh, no, they were still together, I didn't mean, because she's now got to change the story because, you know, the defense attorney is like, you know, wait a minute, he doesn't know anything about the DNA, but he's trying to figure out, well, why are you so adamant, and you'll hear the testimony about them not being broken up. Well, he doesn't know. He doesn't know the DNA's missing. He doesn't know that it's lost. He doesn't know anything about my statement, and he sure as heck doesn't know what's really going on here about this whole thing with they're broken up and they're not boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. Because it's pivotal as far as the DNA. Because obviously they have to say something about that they're whatever. So. All right, so here's this testimony on the exchange between the defense and Steve and Lisa being former boyfriend girlfriend, and Jack McMahon doesn't he's on to something, but he's just not sure what's going on. If he had the DNA and all that, he would see the whole picture. But question: in your statement on the last page, okay, I'm not aware of any problems between Alfonso and Mendez. This is Jessica stating this. I'm not aware of any problems between Alfonso and Mendez, or Steven and Mendez. Steven was dating my sister, but he had broken up with her. Now this is in her statement. So in your statement you indicated that this is a question. In fact, at the time he was broken up with her. Is that correct? And her answer is no. Like I said, they had an on and off. It was on and off. One day they were together, one day they weren't together. Question. Okay, but why would you say then, if they were together at this time, why would you say in the statement that you signed that Steven was dating my sister, and then you added, but he had broken up with her? Lisa was pregnant with Steven's child. Why did you say that? Add that particular portion if in fact they were together at this point in time. Why would you add that they had broken up with her? Why would you add that particular portion when describing their relationship? Answer: he had broken up with her, but then they were together like 5 minutes later. Question: 5 minutes later, when you gave this statement, they were together, right? Answer: from my knowledge, yeah. Question: but in the statement, that's what you told us yesterday. But in the statement, you said shortly after this homicide, but he broke up with her. That's your words, right? Yeah. So, she tells me that they're former boyfriend, girlfriend in her initial statement on the scene. Then she starts to write in her statement, 10 hours, 12 hours later, she writes in this whole statement, which is here, that they're broken up, the former boyfriend, girlfriend. Well, that doesn't fit the narrative here. That's not going to fit. That's not going to work because they got Steve and Lisa lovey-dovey. They're all buddies. They're all friends. They're all good. They're all good to go. Well, that's not true. You know that Steve just killed her. So, and he's threatened her for weeks. Him and Alex, both of them, were threatening her with guns prior to that. So this whole thing, the whole breaking up with her thing, Jack McMahon is on to something. He just doesn't know what's going on. He's not sure what's going on because he doesn't know anything about the DNA. He says he don't have my report. So, clearly, he doesn't know anything about any of this other stuff going on here. He doesn't know anything about any of this stuff. He doesn't know that they're informants. He doesn't know that the officer that's running the job is their case informant, that is their handler for the informant. He doesn't know any of this stuff. So he doesn't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes. So, that's why she's so adamant about, they're not, they were together, and then they're 5 minutes later, they're not together, and, so, I mean, you can see where you're getting with this whole thing. It's just, it's ridiculous. It's getting out of control. It is out of control. So, yeah, so he stole my .45, we got that with the gun. And all that, and then you had the altercation. You have all this. I mean, I have major issues with this case. And in May 22nd of 2008, so it's 2008 here, all right? May 22nd, okay? There's a deal made. There's a deal made between Alex Martinez and the Commonwealth. All right, they make a deal, and his story at May 22nd starts to change. He starts changing his story after the 22nd, and he goes from first or second degree murder down to burglary, and so he's getting a sweet deal. He's getting probation. He's getting out. He testifies. Jack McMahon asked him, "Hey, when you testify here and you get out, you're done, right? You're out. You're not going to jail." And he says, "Yeah." So he makes a deal. Not only does he make a deal, but also Jessica makes a deal too. Because Jessica has a case coming up, and she actually makes a deal, and then she gets probation on that case. So they both get deals. Alex makes his May 22nd, and after May 22nd, he starts changing his story on what's going on. So there is a total change in what he's starting to talk about as far as the case, and the things that he starts to do to get himself in a good position. So he starts with his deal and doing the things he's doing. He kind of doubles down on the story. He doubles down on everything as far as, he points the finger at Alfonso, and he is on top of Alfonso. Alfonso pulls the gun. Alfonso pulls the gun here at the beginning of the hallway. I see him shoot, blah, 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 and then I run out and all that. And then also you got Jessica, who makes her deal, and then she does the same thing. She starts to double down on, obviously she says Alfonso's the shooter, but then stories start to change, things start changing as far as their testimony. They get caught constantly by Mr. McMahon changing their stories all the way through the court case. So, yeah, I know this case is very involved. I know that there's a lot of things going on. There's a ton of things going on as far as this job. But again, this is my opinion on a lot of this stuff. And there's even more. There's even more testimonies, even more stuff as far as the deals and things that go on with this case. But, I believe that I was a whistleblower on this job. I mean, I didn't know I was a whistleblower back then, on October 16th and 17th and days after this job. I didn't know that I was a whistleblower because I wasn't sure what I was talking about. But clearly, I was blowing the whistle on this job back then about the 2006 robberies, about the whole connection between these guys, the SIU with the informants, and Harold handling the job and told he wasn't handling the job, and he actually did handle the job. So I'm obviously talking about the things that are going on here with her, as far as Lisa Diaz being the victim and what's going on with all these things. So, and the setup and all that. So they take me right off. They take me right off the job, and so I feel as though that I didn't even know I was a whistleblower on this case. But clearly they wanted to get me off the job quickly, and they wanted to make sure that I was off of it. And they did that. They got me right off of it. And I didn't find out until 2015 what was really going on here, because I retire, I get out, and then, and then all of a sudden I get a knock on my door August of 2015 that they give me this statement, and they want to tell me in my report, and it's just, it's perturbed, because I believe that with this whole thing, my opinion with this whole job, when I get here, this is what really bothers me with this whole job, is that I get here so fast, and I get in this apartment, and I'm in there, and that's fine, I'm doing the job by myself. I don't really care, because I've done this many, many times, and I was trained by the best people, so I don't really care about that part. But you know what, like with me and all connecting all the dots here, how about, what comes to me is that, how about if SIU possibly knows that this is going to happen, knows that something's going to happen here, or they find out about it, and then they get on the radio and they monitor the radio, and then I'm here. Why was I in the apartment so long by myself? Because after this happened, I had officers come up to me, like a week later, a couple days later, they come up to me, and a couple of the officers from that squad that didn't come in, they apologized to me. They told me that, hey John, we're sorry, we were told to wait before we came in. We were told to wait till you cleared the location. So a couple of the officers said that to me, and I was like, what? And they were like, yeah. They said, we apologize for that. And I was like, wait for what? So now that statement that they said all those years ago, now it all makes sense. That they were told to wait, nobody shows up, nobody's going, I'm not supposed to be working, I get there so quickly. Did they possibly have these people hold up because their informants are inside here? And then did they want possibly, my opinion, to get the drop on me, and I'm here by myself, knowing that these people aren't going to come in? you know, what's going on? Like, what's the real picture here? Is, you know, are my people trying to get me hurt? Like this SIU and this job? Like, what's going on? Like, why is nobody coming to this job? I mean, I get it that there's people here, you know, that don't want to go because it's suburbs, and like they after they apologized to me, they told me, well, you Philly cops, you guys are crazy. I mean, you know, they don't pay us enough to do this. Well, what are you talking about? Like, they don't pay you enough? I mean, I came there to make more money, but you know what? I mean, city cops, I was doing it with $29,000 a year when I came out in '92. I mean, you know, it's just it's ridiculous that you would even make a statement like that. They don't pay us enough? You're making $80,000 back then. Now you're making $100. Like, they don't pay you enough? Like, this is what these guys said to me. Like, you know, so, like, I mean, I just don't even get it. I don't understand. I mean, you know, this goes back to my whole adage of we're all police officers, we're not all cops. I mean, the bottom line for me, you know, cops handle, you know, serious offenses every day. You know, murders, rapes, robberies, assaults, they do that every day. You know, they're doing it every day. That's a cop, a guy who's out there working, pushing a car in a neighborhood where nobody wants to go. They don't want to go there at all. Nobody wants to go there. The only time that these officers and most of these people in the suburbs ever get anywhere near the ghetto or the bad neighborhood is when they drive by on the expressway going to a football game. That's the only time. And they look over and say, oh yeah, they're the bad neighborhoods. They don't ever go in those neighborhoods. So that's all they ever see. So I mean, there's a big difference between suburban policing and inner city policing as far as I'm concerned. There's two different jobs. There's two different worlds. That's why I couldn't fit. I couldn't fit in this type of role. And that's why I had the problems I had with this. You know, but imagine if they're trying to get me hurt. I mean, this is my opinion. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're trying to get me hurt here. Like, they're actually trying to get me hurt. That's the only reason. That's the only thing that I could come to with this whole nonsense. Nobody's coming. Nobody's coming in. You know, they're apologizing that they were told to wait. Like, wait for what? Like, so, like, I don't know. I just don't know. That's just my personal opinion on that. And I think I have other things that I could elaborate on, but I want to wrap it up right here. It's a lot. It's a lot to go into. All right, thanks.